Welcome back to Shade Gardening with Perennials in Middle Tennessee. My name is Jennifer Salter. I'm a Rutherford County Master Gardener, and today we have part 2, flowering shade plants. In part 1, we talked about my favorite foliage shade plant perennials. Now I'm going to talk about some flowering shade perennials that do well here in Middle Tennessee. Many people think that shade gardens are flowerless, but many plants that flower, there are many plants that flower in the shade. The flowers may not be as bright as showy as sun-loving plants, but they do provide a lovely, colorful touch. Again, these plants can all be found in my garden, and I've had success with them. And don't forget, many of these flowering plants also have beautiful foliage. Flowering shade plants we're going to talk about today would be columbines, Lenten rose, astilbe, bleeding heart, lungwort, goat's beard, spiderwort, lily of the valley, virginia, celandine poppy, Virginia bluebells, Ligularia, and cardinal flower. And I've done a zigzag through that with a mix of the Latin names and the common names, and we'll look at both as we go through them. Columbines, who doesn't love a columbine? These can grow 2 to 3 feet in height, and they will self-seed over time, forming large colonies. If you remove the flowering stems on the columbines, when they're finished blooming, it will encourage additional blooms. Flowers are bell-shaped, and the colors range from yellows to oranges to purples, blues, and pinks. This plant is also very attractive to hummingbirds. The Helleborus or Lenten rose. This is an evergreen perennial. It's a late winter, early spring bloomer and typically grows about 1 to 1.5 feet tall. The foliage is evergreen, but in a harsh winter it can look scorched. So cut back the flowering stems as well after blooming to encourage new foliage growth. Flowers are large and cup-shaped and almost rose-like in appearance. They also tend to nod downward towards the ground. They come in a variety of colors, and you can even get double petals. My Helleborus bloomed until June this year because of our long, mild spring. Astilbe. Astilbe is a herbaceous perennial, and if it's watered regularly throughout the summer after the blooms have faded, it will continue to provide you with attractive foliage. The tiny flowers of the astilbe typically show up in July. They're densely packed and give us an arching plume that makes this plant so easily recognizable. For maximum effect, plant these in masses and you will get this gorgeous color blowing in the wind in your garden. Next up, we have Dicentra or bleeding heart. This loves cool, moist areas and is a native to North America. Flowers are heart-shaped with a droplet at the bottom of each flower, which gives it this distinctive shape and its common name. Flowers appear in springtime, and the plant stops flowering as the temperatures rise. Like many other spring bloomers, give it lots of moisture throughout the summer, and you'll be rewarded with lovely foliage. Pulmonaria or lungwort. I'm going to stick with Pulmonaria because I don't like the name lungwort. It's too beautiful a flower for that. It is prized for both its foliage and its flowers. It grows easily in well-drained soils and can tolerate full shade. The tiny funnel-shaped flowers of the Pulmonaria range from cobalt blues to pinks. If you combine these spring blooms with the plant's foliage, you have a spectacular show. Leaves can be spotted with green midribs or edges or even blotches. When the flowers die back, cut the stems and you can enjoy the foliage for the rest of the year. Aruncus or goat's beard. This is yet another native that grows best in moist, fertile soils, so try not to let it dry out. Aruncus can grow 4 to 6 feet high and has dark green foliage and plume-like spikes of tiny cream-colored flowers, which look similar to astilbe. The bloom season is April to May. Next, we have Tradescantia virginiana, Spiderwort. This can grow to heights of 3 feet, but I have several in my yard that are right now about 4 feet or taller. Flowers range from violet blue to purple to white. Flowers have 3 petals and open up a few at a time, each one lasting only 1 day. Blooms arrive in succession from late May through early July, and after flowering, I'll cut my plant back to about a foot in height, and this encourages new growth, and sometimes you'll even get more blooms. Convallaria, or lily of the valley. This is a low-growing perennial and can take part to full shade. Convallaria tolerates a wide range of soil conditions, and it naturalizes easily in woody areas. In spring, the delicate bell-shaped, fragrant whitish flowers appear, and the blooms will continue from early to mid-spring. Be aware that all parts of this plant are poisonous, so plant with care. Next, we have pig-squeak or begonia. I think this is far too pretty to be called pig-squeak. So anyway, there's a bit of trivia for you. The name pig-squeak comes from the sound made by rubbing one of the leaves between your thumb and a finger. Begonia is low-growing and blooms from April to May. It may be evergreen in our area, but it depends on what kind of winter we're having. The leaves are glossy, leathery, dark green, and can get quite large, sometimes 10 inches long by 8 inches wide. They'll turn purplish bronze in the winter, and the dark pink flowers appear on stalks that can get as high as 16 inches. Celandine poppy. This is one of our native wildflowers, which can be found in moist woodlands. I do grow this successfully in my garden, but I try not to disturb it. Celandine poppies are a spring perennial, which goes dormant in the early summer if the soil dries down. Spring blooms are a 4-petal yellow flower which emerges from a fuzzy bud. You can see one of them right there. A bit of trivia on this plant. The stems contain a bright yellow sap, which was formerly used as a dye by Native Americans. Virginia bluebells. This is another native wildflower that does well left undisturbed in the garden. It also goes dormant in the summer, so plant something else nearby so you don't end up with a big gap. Mine are planted among hostas, and these hostas will grow in and fill the gap as the summer moves in. Virginia bluebells grow to about 1 to 2 feet tall. They have clusters of trumpet-shaped flowers which emerge as pink buds before turning blue in the early spring. In my garden, this tells me that summer is definitely here. Ligularia, or leopard plant. This is a herbaceous perennial grown not only for its blooms but for its foliage as well. It looks best in mass plantings where it can be seen at its best and you can enjoy both the bloom and the foliage. Its dark green leaves are huge, long stalked, leathery and round, and they can grow to 1 foot or more. Flowers are yellow daisy-like flowers that bloom on leafless stalks on above the foliage in the early summer. Lobelia, or the cardinal flower, is next. This is not to be confused with the blue annual quote lobelia. This is a native perennial which likes moist locations. Flower stalks grow to a height of 2 to 3 feet, and it typically blooms in late summer, from July to about September. The colors are typically cardinal red, which gives it its name, but white and rose-colored varieties can be found. Hummingbirds and butterflies are very attracted to lobelias. That's the end of our section on flowering plants for the shade. These are just a few that can be found out there. These are ones that I've had success with here in Middle Tennessee. Again, please feel free to reach out to us by email, mastergardeners.rc@gmail.com, or call the Rutherford County Extension Office, 615-898-7710. I've again put the useful websites in here: the Plant Finder from Missouri Botanical Gardens, the University of Tennessee's Benefits of Native Plant document, and the Tennessee State Parks publication on native plants. If you have doubts about whether a plant's invasive, check out the Tennessee Invasive Plant Council website before purchasing. And thanks for visiting with us. Stay tuned for our next section on ground cover for the shade and some other ideas that we throw in there as well. Thanks for visiting.